the Desert King Ganondorf, the eternal antagonist of the Zelda series. Is he truly evil? A Kaiser who carries the birthright of ruling over the people of the sand. Now, in the twilight years of his life, he looks back to what could have been, or what could be. He led a conquest that plunged Hyrule into chaos and changed the fate of the world forever. Was this a decree of a selfish king, or did he put everything on the line to lead his people to the promised land? Is Ganondorf good? Ganondorf is the king of the Gerudo people, a race of sand dwellers mostly comprised of females. It is his birthright as the sole male born every 100 years to rule over the tribe.
As the king of the Gerudo, he led an insurrection against the nation of Hyrule in hopes of attaining the Triforce and use its might to rule over all.
The truth behind Ganondorf's existence is that he is the reincarnation of the Demon King, Demise, and his hatred. Demise placed a curse on Link and Zelda in the events of Skyward Sword so that his incarnation shall follow their kind in an eternal pursuit of the Triforce.
Eventually, Ganondorf was successful in getting the Triforce of Power in the events of Ocarina of Time. Looking to complete the set, he challenges Link and Zelda for their parts of the Triforce, and fails. He is then sealed to the Dark World he helped create, and peace returned to Hyrule for a time while Link returns to the past.
Much later, Ganondorf broke free of his prison and terrorized the land once again. Without the hero, Hyrule was unable to stop him. Then they prayed to the goddesses for intervention. The goddesses decreed that Hyrule would be flooded and sealed along with Ganondorf. However, this would not stop the Desert King, as he would rise above the sea to continue his conquest for the Triforce. In The Wind Waker, Ganondorf's character is vastly expanded from what we've seen in Ocarina of Time. In his previous appearance, he is shown to be malicious, manipulative, and yet a cultured tyrant. However, in The Wind Waker, we get more insight to his character that leads us to theorizing the truth behind his character and sense of self.
Though still malevolent, Ganondorf is more controlled, somber, conservative, even merciful to a degree, sparing Link's life on 2 separate occasions in the game. His more refined demeanor may come from more than age, but from a revelation or realization to his existence and role in the grand scheme of things.
Now the question that we're all asking is Ganondorf really good? We must also ask, if not for Demise's curse, would Ganondorf be inherently good and therefore would never seek to conquer the world with the power of the Triforce? From what we learned in The Wind Waker, Ganondorf coveted the lush green fields of Hyrule and their winds that brought nothing but prosperity to its people. The reason why Ganondorf coveted this land is because his home, the Gerudo Desert, was such a harsh environment for his people. In the daytime, a searing wind would engulf the land. In the night, a frigid air would pierce through the desert. No matter when, the wind would bring the same thing to the Gerudo: death.
It was Ganondorf's intention to bring his people out of the desert and to the lush green lands of Hyrule, once he has conquered it granted. In The Wind Waker, he wanted to return Hyrule to the surface so he may rule it, and supposedly rebuild his tribe. Ganondorf's devotion to his people has always been in question due to the timeline split, but in the adult timeline it seems that this is absolute. It is highly evident that Ganondorf laments the loss of his people and the loss of Hyrule itself. But where did it all go wrong? Could it be that Ganondorf as a being was hardwired to be originally good, but the curse of Demise cultivated his creation, and destiny is what beckons him to walk the path of evil? Though Demise is the root of all evil and demons, his ties to the Gerudo race is pretty much non-existent. Their specific biology dictates their race to be primarily female, only that a sole male is born every 100 years. The Gerudo themselves are nowhere near considered evil, so their connection as a race to Demise and/or demons is simply not there.
Ganondorf could have been a righteous king of the Gerudo if it wasn't for the curse of Demise. He has shown compassion for his people, and has even shown honor and civility to his enemies. Though he has been malicious, Ganondorf could have been anything but evil. What can also point to the notion of the Desert King being good is that he may have known about his role in the legend by the time of the Wind Waker.
According to legend, the Triforce does not distinguish between good or evil, and that anyone can claim it, making the Triforce fair game to anyone who is willing to strive for it. That is why the royal family takes on so many measures to guard it. Now let's think about that for a moment. Ganondorf, as vile as his tactics were, claimed the Triforce of Power fair and square, and used it to conquer Hyrule. Though he is the reincarnation of Demise, he is still very much human, and beings of the world had to rise up on their own to try to defeat Ganondorf to end his rule.
Enter Link, who along with the sages and Zelda was able to seal Ganondorf in the Dark World at the climax of Ocarina of Time. The goddess's involvement with this was minimal. Now, flash forward to the events before the Wind Waker. Ganondorf returns to pick up where he left off, and Link isn't there to stop him. And then, the goddesses intervene. It is highly apparent that at one point, the Desert King had to ask, why? Ganondorf is a very intelligent individual, so at one point he had to ask the question himself. Why did the goddesses have to get involved? Many atrocities have befallen Hyrule, and there were times a hero did not rise. He claimed the Triforce for his own, so why did they have to try and smite him? Is he not merely a man? Has there not been mortals who used the Triforce before him and felt no repercussions? Does the Triforce not distinguish between good and evil? Perhaps it was this act that made Ganondorf realize that he is more than a man. He is more than a king. He is something that the gods fear for the world. He isn't the Desert King. He is the Demon King.
It was the humbling act of being struck down by the gods that brought a change in Ganondorf. Although Ganondorf is by no means a puppet, he did not know of the roots of his dark destiny until now. He was heir to the demonic throne, he who will preserve and attempts to conquer without end. Ganondorf, after the events of the Great Flood, more than likely became partially or entirely self-aware of the entity that he is. This self-realization probably brought forth Ganondorf's more somber side that is seen in Wind Waker. His goal of conquering Hyrule was to establish dominion over the promised land of Hyrule, and to bring his people into prosperity, but due to his connection to Demise, it was all but obliterated from his hopes. His people, his desert, and all of Hyrule were lost to the sea, because he was a force that incurred the wrath of the gods, a demon.
Though many will assume that Ganondorf's empowerment from being the reincarnation of Demise will be some sort of dark blessing, in actuality, it is the same curse that is bound to Link and Zelda. Ganondorf didn't ask for any of this. All he wanted was to shield his people from the death that the wind brought. But due to being a reincarnation of Demise, his way of accomplishing this goal brought nothing but doom to his plan, his people, and eventually himself. Let's take a moment and think about Ganondorf and his ideology and how it contrasts between his time in Ocarina of Time and the Wind Waker.
In Ocarina of Time, he was an ambitious young man that was seeking a Triforce for his diabolical plans. He did not state why exactly he wants to bring his tyranny to Hyrule, just that he was confident in his abilities to do so, in that he callously manipulated many tribes and events that would lead to his entry into the Sacred Realm. He did this with the full support of his people, well save for Nabooru, who was secretly planning to rebel against him. Once Link was sealed and the Triforce of Power now his, he obliterated Hyrule Castle Town and erected his tower in place of the castle. Within 7 short years, he ruled Hyrule with an iron fist. Yet, despite his oppressive ways, he let some of the tribes carry on their days under his watch. In this time, he is confident, cultured, and energetic in his ploys. Now, fast forward after his defeat, his return and eventual smiting.
In the Wind Waker, we see Ganondorf take on more of a lamenting and calm personality, although he is still malicious as ever. In this time, he is seeking the Triforce, but now he needs it in order to revive Hyrule and make it his own. In his plans, he kills the sages who are responsible for keeping the Master Sword's power at its peak. This strategy, as heartless as may seem, could be seen as a very tactical step in Ganondorf's design and new point of view, like playing chess, taking precautions to get the desired end result. Link had apparently had to prove himself to be a hero to truly find and own the Triforce of Courage, something Ganondorf couldn't do. Perhaps he knew Link would have to prove himself in some way to earn, or should I say reveal it, so that he may take that piece for himself in due time. Along with this more calmer, calculating nature, Ganondorf has shown mercy at various moments in the Wind Waker, such as letting Link live on 2 separate occasions. The first in the beginning of the game, which could be argued that was for his master plan, but the second at the end of the game is peculiar, because he could have easily ended both Link and Zelda after extracting the Triforce parts from them. Also, in his quest for finding Zelda, he lets the girls who fit the description live and held them captive instead of killing them.
Taking that into account, is it possible that when reality hit Ganondorf after being smited by the gods, Ganondorf may have tried to take a different path to his destiny? He is Demise incarnate. He knows that now. But in his days during Ocarina of Time, he didn't fully understand that what he was doing is considered evil. But it is too late now. Instead of following the bloodthirsty path that his past life has laid out for him, he will do things his way, but without unnecessary casualties. He killed the sages for a multitude of reasons that can attribute or hinder his end goal. The destruction of Great Fish Island was also strategically done to further his plans. Other than that, Ganondorf is nowhere near as destructive, malevolent, or crazed as his younger self or his Twilight Princess counterpart.
This all boils down to the question in the theory: is Ganondorf good? His mission is that of a righteous and true one, a mission to find a better future for his people. We have seen the capacity for his virtues and values. Is it because he is tied to Demise and the evil that now rules his life? Could it truly be possible that when you strip away that which binds him to the Demon King, all of the evil and hate, that Ganondorf could be a righteous and upstanding man with a promising future? When asking this question, we must look critically at his role in the Wind Waker. Ganondorf realizes that he is a spawn of the Demon King. He realizes that he is more than a man, that he has a grand dark place in the grand destiny bound to Hyrule. It is upon this realization and the humbling that he received from the gods that he continues his quest to rebuild this tribe and to conquer Hyrule. That's what he wants out of everything. One thing that could point to the truth of all this is that Ganondorf rarely uses his demonic magical abilities in the Wind Waker. The only times that Ganondorf may have used them is when he was conjuring the Phantom Ganons, the Puppet Ganon, and the dark portals leading to his sunken tower. But even then, it could be argued that he used the Triforce of Power for these feats. Furthermore, he doesn't even transform into Ganon, nor does he use his magical abilities in the final clash against Link and Zelda, instead relying on his own weapons and fighting prowess. This can be seen as Ganondorf choosing to use his own abilities and the abilities of the Triforce, rather than the demonic powers he was born with. And when he met his end, his words were that of the wind that he wanted for his people, before being silenced forever. Ganondorf, the Desert King, is the harbinger of many atrocious acts. But is he really black-hearted as we all perceive him to be? His ideals mean well, but they are lost in a flurry of demonic hatred due to Demise's influence. At his core, before the Demon King could take hold, Ganondorf may be good and may have been the king that all of his people can look up to and respect for his devotion to his people. Unfortunately, that notion is twisted and turned into something decrepit due to the hate of the Demon King. It is somewhat tragic to see such a promising man fall before he can even rise. What do you think? Do you think Ganondorf is good? Or rather, does he have the capacity to be good? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Support our channels by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until the next Zelda Theory, this has been M.Productions and HMK. And we will check you guys later. Please be sure to check out the other side of the theory on M.Productions.